Chinese households are projected to host around 755 million domestic pets by next year, but keeping animals as pets has a complex history in a country founded in Buddhism and forged by famine. Just last year, the government declared dogs would now be classified as pets, not food. Regardless, the controversial annual Lychee and Dog Meat Festival in Yulin is underway again this month. That festival promotes the local dog meat industry, which persists despite the efforts of animal rights campaigners. Annie Louie has more.
The year was 1996. A little kid accompanied her mum on their first trip to China together. Their rural hometown was covered in fields that had animals like chickens and pigs. Most families in the village even owned an ox. The child received 2 white rabbits to play with, which she adored. After returning to Australia, the 4-year-old would talk to her relatives over the phone to ask how her rabbits were doing. The relatives always said they were doing well. But they lied. The rabbits were long gone as they'd been cooked for food. And yep, you guessed it, that little kid was me. Even at that very young age, I'd applied my Western view of certain animals as pets without knowing that traditionally, Chinese people have kept animals for work and food. It was only last year that the Chinese government reclassified dogs as pets instead of livestock. The Agriculture Ministry said the progress of human civilization and the public's concern and love for animals led to the decision. Some of the mistreatment towards animals is a legacy of Mao Zedong's Cultural Revolution. In the mid-1960s, keeping dogs as pets was banned. It was seen as an activity for the bourgeoisie, or Western capitalist elites, and they claimed dogs were consuming too much of the nation's limited food supplies. I first met my cousin Zan on my first trip to China. Despite once owning a fish jumper, Zan grew up to be a passionate dog lover. She now runs a dog training business in Guangdong that accepts 8 dogs a month for lessons.
以前呢，像我们农村，狗狗是作为看门口的，就是说看家护院的。还有人是把自己家养的狗狗当肉来吃狗肉。但是这几年呢，因为我们宣传了很多养狗文化，所以很多人现在是把狗狗当自己的小孩子一样来养，不是说像以前那种方式了。
Zan finds most of her clients on Douyin, China's TikTok, where she has 160,000 followers.
Thank you.
Turns out, I'm not the only celebrity in the family. Zan says the most popular breeds include golden retrievers and poodles.
从早上基本是24小时，我们的生活都是对着狗狗的。但是狗狗呢，是可以给我们带来很多快乐的。
Pet ownership is certainly booming in China. The pet dog population is growing at 9.9% per year. The popularity of cats is growing too, at an even faster rate of 18.5%, followed by fish, small mammals, birds and reptiles. Pei Su, CEO of the not-for-profit organisation ACTAsia, says some people are treating animals as the latest accessory.
Although the animal lovers are growing and the cruelty cases are more prominent to be recognised, the fundamental problem is seeing animals as a resource and object. That is one of our biggest obstacles. China
changed the laws around animal welfare after the pandemic. What do you know about that?
The pandemic highlighted the seriousness of the wildlife trade, how we loss of the biodiversity and the loss of habitat for these animals, and also the trade in the live market. And one of the most significant change through the pandemic in 2020 in China was the wildlife consumption was banned. However, unfortunately, the animals, particularly wildlife, they're not only just using in the as a food as consumption, they also use for clothing like fur. They're also still using for entertainment.
However, Pei warns against adopting Western models and applying them to China.
Not everything in the West are the good thing for Asia. If we want to learn, we need to internalize it. We need to have a step to make it as suitable for its local context.
Turns out it's a misconception to assume that China is simply catching up with the West when it comes to pet ownership and animal welfare. In Buddhism, it teaches us respect for all beings, humans and animals alike. Inspired by Buddhist teachings, Artist Feng Zikai famously depicted harmony between humans and animals in his cartoon series Paintings for the Preservation of Life in 1929, decades before the Cultural Revolution. It's clear attitudes towards animals in China is changing massively. And if you want to get emotionally attached to a small, fluffy animal, now is a much better time than 1996. I'll never leave you.
And Annie, when we talk about animal rights, there's another issue that's been getting a lot of attention. It's these mystery animal boxes. What are they?
Yeah, so it's been going crazy on social media, mostly the outrage around this news story, which is people have been able to order mystery boxes online, and usually they contain a collectible item. You can imagine in Australia, supermarkets were doing something similar. People went crazy for it, except they were including live animals as part of the things that they were sending out via the mail. And it is illegal in China for you to send live animals out, except authorities haven't really been able to crack down on this yet. So it's really been on social media that people are calling for the government to change the regulations and to be harsher, because you might not know this, but there is not one single law that protects animals in general as a whole in China when it comes to this.
So what can be done from here? So you're talking about changes to law, and can the campaign on social media bring about this change?
I've found that there has been a lot of smaller organisations working on animal welfare issues in China, but it seems like there isn't a very large one like RSPCA that we have here in Victoria. So it's like they really do need to get their act together in order to work together so that these organisations can educate. And also one of the people that I spoke to, Pei, she is working on education with children in particular. So it's a mix of things, not just social media, but also working with those communities on the ground.
Annie, thank you.
Thanks, Dan.